rolling?
Are we rolling?
What it do? What it be? It's been Cam, and it's been really hard to get these reviews out, guys. You know, we've been struggling every week, but we're finally back. And let's start with brand new Space Jam.
So this came out in 1996, and is featuring.
And we also grew up in the 90s.
You see, it's really sort of a new legacy with Michael Jordan coming in.
Huge fan of the LeBron James version back in 1996, so it's
Oh,
nice
you
to
mean
see.
the LeBron James version in 96? You know, growing up in the 90s, growing up in the 1930s when Looney Tunes started, you know, we also grew up in the 90s.
So it was nice to see the original film.
Also grew up in the 1930s when Looney Tunes originally aired. When Looney Tunes started, you know, Great Depression, that depression was great. And Mickey Rooney Tunes only made it better. Also, growing up in 2011 when Looney Tunes aired for the first time.
Growing up with iconic Looney Tunes characters like Steamboat Willie,
Groomy Croons,
Willie, and
Wile E. Coyote.
Don Cheadle.
All I have to say is, from a young age, Scroomy Brooms has been a big.
Chungus.
So, before we get any further into Space Jam Far From Home, I would love to give a second and thank our sponsors.
And the all-star cast is back. We have Anthony Davis as a shard of glass, LaDon James, Bron Cheadle, Space James.
They had a couple of disappointing executives.
They had a couple disappointing ones.
That's true.
But they weren't very disappointing. What I really love about this three-part film is the second part.
They really went with an unprecedented structure in this one.
So that's really unprecedented.
You know, I didn't know that.
I really think the WNBA players were a step in the right direction. And you know, the movie actually reminded me a lot of the WNBA. It's just...
To come back from LeBron James's last performance...
Thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck.
That's
Thunderstruck was a great movie. There's just characters left and right.
And beyond that, there's a lot of characters in this film.
So Space Jam is actually a play on words. Space and jam.
You know, they really went back to the old schools with this one. Michael Jordan
He is not an actor.
Michael
Now,
Jackson's 1996 Space Jam was a blockbuster hit, which actually inspired my shirt here. 96 is the year that Space Jam won Oscars.
We're going to talk about the score of this film.
I thought this was scored.
You can't talk about Space Jam: A New Legacy. You can't talk about Space Jam: A New Legacy. Let's wrap this up, guys. How are we going to review this one?
Well, I want to start this off by saying that.
Well, I don't want to spoil this movie.
I hated this movie.
This was a bad film. I'm actually wearing my authentic 1996 Space Jam jersey.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, my favorite characters actually showed up in this film, which I was really excited about. We have Chummy Rummy, Chungo, Chungo Bungo, Chungus Among Us. That's a big one with the kids. Big Boy.
Warner Brothers has really been on fire. They've really been on fire.
And what better way to end the Space Jam series than by killing off Bugs Bunny?
I really wasn't expecting Chungy to make a sacrifice play in the end. Looney Tunes. You know, I just love the Looney Tunes. And let's get started. Let's wrap this up now. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. They started off with Like Mike, followed it up with Magic Mike.
Followed
And
up
then,
with
of course,
Big Mike.
Then we go back to Tom and Jerry, to Gone with the Wind. And then this movie follows up the predecessor, the reboot prequel sequel, Like Mike.
Now, I would like to say something about the CGI. It's not good.
CGI was great. So to wrap it up, let's move into our second point of discussion here. Basketball is a sport that's never been depicted in film before. As depicted in Space Jam from 1996 and also Hoosiers from before that.
Schneider,
Pretty good.
They
Now,
bring in
I don't
all-star
know
cast
if
members.
we want to talk about all this stuff.
They did not have a budget for this,
So we're talking
although they
about
own
it.
Disney.
It has a lot of
Disney
elements.
Plus. Let's check out This new clip from La Space James.
You know, you gotta love a live-action cartoon movie. Action is probably one of my least favorite genres, but when you do it live, it really just brings the energy out of the studio audience they used for this one.
Right, this one didn't actually use a studio audience. It used a live action.
It didn't use a live action, but it had a live audience.
Right.
Well, a lot of you, before seeing this movie, you might be thinking, well, Bugs Bunny's not real. He can't be in a movie. The Warner Brothers studio, they actually came up with a brand new technology never used before since 1996. And it's never been used before. It's called live action.
So they actually sprayed a little bit of the live action on our little friend Bugs Gunny here, popped to life, and started playing basketball and just...
And this movie, Space Jam: A New Legacy, is really just a love letter to the movie Space Jam: A New Legacy.
I don't know about that one. This movie is just so bad.
A lot of visuals in this movie, as opposed to not
Braille.
visuals. I would actually recommend that you watch this movie in Braille. Now, we've all had issues with Warner Brothers in the past, and if you're like us and you really just dislike everything they do with the... And, subscribe.
You know, with this movie being a live-action movie, it really just reminds me of the pinnacle of what live-action means, such as live action! Let's start off the review by mentioning, come on!
To wrap up this film, we're gonna 3 words, the.
And that's gonna wrap up this review.
I would like to mention, we do make these videos every week. Last week's was Spider-Man's Home for Imaginary Friends. Now, if you would like to see us do a new movie, comment down below. If you would like to not see a new movie, comment down below.
For a reboot, this film was impeccable. As a film, though, absolutely crap.
That makes sense.
With big Hollywood movies like this, you really need a focused cast and focused direction, which is why I'm really glad that they had focused screenwriters.
One of the best parts about this movie is the dialogue. It is so good. The relationship between Bugs, Jung-Ji, and LaFinals really is just, they come together in a unique, and just see him perform
Tunes.
New Legacy. Now,
Alright, it wouldn't be the end of the video without our classic outfit.